That's a good point. And, I've got to admit, I did not know that something of this magnitude could happen in the Gulf of Mexico. I really didn't know, even though I do a lot of this type of work. And I've done cases that involve blowout preventers and casing.
Yeah, you don't think about the scale, though.
Yeah, I just never thought that I thought that it was, that they had regulated any possibility of this type of thing happening.
Yeah.
I thought for sure that it was totally regulated out of possibility. But now everybody's going to see and have to find out the hard way that that's
my
not the
people
truth.
that are out in the Gulf tell me this kind of stuff happens all the time. It never happened on this scale before, but these type of accidents, you don't hear about them. They try to keep it on the down low, but it's not uncommon at all is what I've been told by folks that would know.
I heard the same thing. Yeah, you hear about some of them, and and something like this, certainly they can't cover up. But when this oil rig sunk, why in the world didn't they get on the ball and get started with something? They kept looking at it. I kept watching it on the news. And, well, it's getting closer. It's getting closer, but you didn't hear about anything getting done about it until it was like 2 days away. You can't control Mother Nature and the winds the path that it takes. And certainly, we were just bullseye for it, and not that Louisiana's any better than anybody else, but there's Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, Texas could be affected by this, and they just don't have a clue on how this is going to affect the chain of the events that's related to all the fishing industries, and the problem. One thing, I think they're blinded by all the imports that's coming in. Shrimp prices last year were horrible. I mean, horrible. They couldn't even hardly pay the fuel, man. The price of fuel was out of sight. The price of the product was nowhere, and so you can't blame the people for buying it. It's a good deal for them, but somebody needs to step in and regulate, the fuel prices for these people or for us rather, and make sure that we've got a good market for our product, because we do have a good product. These imports that's coming in for nothing, just like the crawfish back in the years, they just dumping millions and millions of pounds of crawfish, and it killed a lot of these farmers.
Well, Scott, how many acres do you have that you fish oysters in?
Well, I've got access to probably around 26 to 30,000 acres. And
are most of these acres threatened so far?
Yeah, right now they're under the gun. It's down in Lafourche Parish. It's just right now it's closed. It's a safety thing. They were fishing oysters at a Point of Shin there, some boats, and they heard that somebody had called in. They found a tar ball out there in a shrimp troll, and they called the 800 number. Next thing you know, they shut the whole thing down. So it's a precaution I'm sure they have to take, but that's going to just wake everybody up. It's so surreal to where you just don't believe that this is really happening. You go about your day and say, well, let's see what's going to happen, but it's just like it won't go away.
Right.
And it's not going to go away.
Right. Yeah, I'm from St. Bernard Parish, so I know how important seafood is to Louisiana, especially, growing up there. And it's just devastating, just truly. There's nothing like Louisiana seafood, nothing like it.
I agree. And this, maybe the good that can come out of this, maybe that Louisiana can get recognized for what opportunities are there and what it produces, and have an opportunity to straighten out the problems that's been here and it's been against the fishermen for so long.
Well, something that not many people have been talking about is the possibility of a tropical storm or a hurricane later this summer. If we have an early hurricane season, while that thing's still pumping out oil, while the whole Gulf is full of all of this oil, and washing it in on shore and inland would just multiply the devastation dramatically. You agree with that, Scott?
That would be unimaginable. You could not literally wrap your brain around something like that, because what a hurricane, won't push ashore will pick up and carry in, so now it becomes a problem for people that's not even close to the coastline. Hurricanes can pick up stuff from Bermuda or Bahamas or whatever and bring it into the States over here by times it hits over here. They're really powerful. And certainly you got your storm surges, and New Orleans was hit. It was so horrible to see Katrina do what it did to that town or city there. It would be, just imagine something like that with a cap of oil on top of it.
Yeah, and it would wipe out some of the freshwater fish that that are kind of safe right now, and then crawfish. That would carry the Gulf waters into the crawfish lakes and ponds, wouldn't it?
Everything is connected one way or the other, and that's what makes the world go round. And then when something like that happens, when you see something like this, you can connect the dots at that point in time.
Scott, do you really think in the big picture, offshore drilling in the Gulf can ever really be consistent with managing the environment in a responsible way in Louisiana?
I think you can. I really do. It's happened. They've had some good reports on it. I mean, they've done okay in the past, but you got to have a backup plan, and then you need a backup plan for that backup plan, and so on and so on. I mean, you just got to figure one day it's going to happen.
So you think the government could more heavily regulate the safety and the procedures that oil companies use, or how do we protect ourselves?
Well, that's the only way. The federal government's the only one that has enough power to do it. They would be the only ones that could do it. And yourself, everything is political. It's all about politics. So it's a matter of getting the key personnel that's in there that cares enough about it to get the job done.
Yeah, because I know there's a lot of folks out there, an element, I mean, not just in Louisiana for the Gulf, but everywhere that thinks this offshore drilling just represents such a gigantic, hazard to sea life and to the environment that we're really better off without it.
Yeah, well, it's hard to say. I think that there's nothing that we can ever do about it. I think that the only thing that's going to happen that they'll get better regulations out of it. They'll probably, see to it that things are done the right way now, but I don't think we can ever stop it. And that's where my opinion comes from. Certainly if you could just say, hey, get out of here, then that would be the thing. And you'd be surprised on how many oil companies hold leases out there, and that's to keep them from actually having somebody else, own water bottoms, and they want to cross those water bottoms. And so, what happens is they have to contact these people and then have to pay for all the damages that they occur whenever they're going through that. And so, for an oil company to have millions of acres of leases out there and then have the rights to be able to do the seafood on it too, I think that's wrong. I think that they should give that back to the state and give that to the people.
Yeah. Well, that's why Florida's been fighting having offshore drilling off of their shores for a long time. And I think I see why. Obviously, they didn't want people to be able to see them from their condo or from the beach to see a big oil derrick or well out while they're trying to enjoy the Gulf and look at nature. But
one little pipe break, and there you go.
And there's your beach. It's gone.
That's exactly right.
Summer. And it might happen here anyway from the Gulf, because if the tides go that way, Florida's threatened. Florida's Gulf Coast beaches are threatened.
Well, it's just amazing to me that, the oil industry, they don't have a backup plan for this kind of thing. It's like the Titanic. The ship sank when they said it could.
When I was a lot younger, there was a lot of impact of the oil industry in Louisiana. See, the problem I have, what bothers me inside of myself, is that I know over the last 20 or 30 years, we once benefited from the oil industry being here. If this was 1975 or 1980, I'd be like, well, it's just a cost of doing business. It's what makes our state great. I mean, we got so much going on. But basically, over the last, 20 or 30 years, Louisiana's pretty much been stripped of any really significant jobs or, infrastructure connection to that. It's all pretty much moved to Texas. Wouldn't you say, Arlen? I mean, in those, we're not really hooked into the benefits of offshore drilling the way we were 20 or 30 years ago in terms of us. Well, we get some taxes, I think, from pumping it through our state, but not the way we did in the 1970s.
No, we don't get paid for the type of risk we take.
The Harvey Canal used to be just full of activity, and we don't do that kind of stuff. Yeah, we're right on the front line.
Yeah, that's right. We're right in the front line. They use our port. They port from, if you consider all the way from Port Fourchon all the way to Baton Rouge, we have the largest port in the entire world. And a lot of the country's oil comes through the Mississippi River. It comes out of the Gulf of Mexico. It's one of the biggest, largest producing fields that we have.
Right,
and,
and this particular,
we don't get the benefit of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's
commensurate
British
with the risk.
Petroleum, British petroleum, And I don't know how many jobs British Petroleum is providing in Louisiana, but it's kind of like the casinos, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's great, if you live in Las Vegas. And we, at one time, we're kind of maybe never quite as big as Texas, but we were in it. But we're not really in it anymore in the way we once were, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Port Fourchon, there's still a lot of people parking there, but the jobs, the oil companies, they all kind of packed up over the years and moved to Houston. And